Wow.
This was just active for you.
Okay. Like what? It's very quiet.
Yeah.
Where's President Lee's guitar? Should be singing right now.
Oh, yours did too. I asked him to bring an extension cord. Like bar. Vacation, too much vacation.
Candace?
Oh, okay.
All right. Here you go.
I know, last time looking at our friend over there to let him record, so. Meeting called to order at 6:11 PM. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Ocampo,
Here?
Ms. Tejada,
Here?
Mr. Ojapinti,
Here.
Mrs. Ingrid,
Here?
Ms. Aludi,
Here.
and President Lee.
Here. All right, Mr. Camp, would you lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 4A, honoring of some guy from local and state legislative offices, so.
At the moment, representative.
Yeah.
And we also have on the way, Senator here, and Representative Walls.
Do you want to start with Supervisor Campbell?
Would you like me to sit down or?
Or stand? Or
Whichever you prefer.
Okay, great. First of all, I just wanted to say a couple things. We have a certificate, a resolution for you and the incoming president, whoever that may be. But Andy, just wanted to really thank you for your leadership. You've taken on some really big and bold initiatives, especially around teacher housing. The one thing I've always appreciated about you is just your strategic thinking and how you go about things. And so I I guess you'll still remain on the board, huh?
Here.
That's a good thing.
Being killed.
And, you know, one thing, I had the opportunity, and you can really tell a person by how they parent. And I had the opportunity to have Henry, Andy's son, work with me in different capacity. And I know he's doing extraordinarily well, but he was just a very, very thoughtful human being and really a fun kid to work with. And so I heard he doesn't play the guitar like you do, but I'm sure he'll do big things as well. But thank you for your service, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate it. And I've certainly appreciated being able to spend a lot of time talking to you over the past couple of years, certainly during my term as president, and being able to gain insight from you on things affecting our school district. And also thank you so much for having Henry working with you. I know he spoke so highly of the day that he was able to canvas walk around with you. And just really enjoyed sort of the mentorship you provided him that particular Saturday morning.
So while we're waiting for other representatives, did board members want to make any comments?
No.
Without
I'll Venmo you later.
What can I say? He's my brother. We joke he's my brother from another mother, but he is my brother. We ran together. I got on board and he didn't, and yet he stepped up when the time came. And you've been so impactful, and we have a great board here. You're a huge part of that. And we've done so much, and especially in the 2 years that you've been president, and I'm really grateful to be your sister. And we just have more and more great things ahead of us all, our entire board.
Yeah, couldn't say better. Honored to serve with you. Knowing that everybody here has done service in the community before joining the board, and seeing you represent that on board and as president in 2 consecutive years, that's something that I think should be noted, like it has been earlier, and continuing to serve the board in any capacity is always an honor, and seeing that you're here with us and doing this is, it's more than reassuring, it's an honor, so thank you.
I've not known you as long as everybody else has. I definitely feel like I know you really well, just all the time that we spent together. Definitely appreciate all the talks that we've had, all the advice and guidance, just being a new member. And, I definitely look forward to, for me, another 3 years with you. So thank you, Andy. Really appreciate everything that you've done.
Yeah, and then for me, we went through some really challenging times, right? That Rosie was carrying the mantle, and then through that handed over to you. So thanks for stepping up, because it was really tough during the period that Rosie was board president, and you coming
For 2
behind
years also.
Yeah, for 2 years also. And so I think that's one of the things that makes our district unique, is that we do have our board president serve for 2 years. So I've definitely seen what that role has done in terms of your role as a trustee and how you've grown through being board president. And I've just been excited to take that ride with you. It's been a great 2 years serving with you as your vice president. And really, I think you have a calmness and a temperament that I've learned a lot from being around you. And so taking on an extra role on top of being a board member is a lot, especially when we all have full-time jobs. And so you've always handled this position with grace and empathy that I admire and that I aspire to. So I'm extremely grateful for everything you've done as your term as a board member, and I've learned a lot from you, and I'm excited for our next year and getting to continue to work together on a couple of different subcommittees. So it's not the end for me with me, man.
I'll save my remarks until we're at the end of all of this,
Oh,
since I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah,
For,
of course. Well, I think we have some more visitors, so I'll let Ms. Hawkins introduce them.
So we have Senator Wiener here. If you wanted to step forward.
So I'm just here, I'm going to say thank you for your service, and it is, I think, serving on a school board in California is one of the most challenging positions, and I think a lot of times people don't fully understand that. Maybe some of the most engaged parents and teachers, and staff get it, but most people in the community, I think, don't realize how challenging it is in terms of the funding in particular, and that we expect so much of our school districts and don't provide the resources to actually get it done. And so being a school board member, you're devoting just an enormous amount of time and energy for little to no pay, and taking a lot of time out of your life, and you're doing it as a labor of love. And that's what it's about. And I think every school board member in any city I've ever known, it's been a labor of love, and that's why you're all. So thank you to all of you for your service, and Andrew, thank you for leading the team for the last few years. You've done a fantastic job. I know a lot of great things are happening at the district, and I know that your leadership is a big part of that. So thank you, and it's always great to have that time where you can step aside a little bit and someone else can take the lead. And so congratulations. And I have here a certificate of recognition from the California State Senate, just to say thank you for your service. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me say a couple more remarks and
Connie Chan here, representing Representative Moore.
Actually, I'm here on behalf of, my name is Connie Chan, staff to Assembly Member, Assembly Speaker Pro Tem Kevin Mullen. I'm also actually here on behalf of my colleague with the State Senator Jerry Hill's office. Just want to say congratulations, and we always understand that being a leader, leadership role, it's always a thankless job. So we really appreciate all your effort and your dedication to our communities. So thank you so much, and thank you for having us here today.
wow, I'm humbled, actually. You do this not knowing what's going to happen, right? You go into this because, I went into this because I'm a parent with 2 kids in this district. Paige and I are blessed to have them and raise them in this community, and to celebrate being empty nesters these past few months has been fantastic. I've looked back over the past 2 years and sitting alongside my fellow board colleagues and my friends, and it just blows my mind to see what we've been able to do. Rosie, you and I have talked about this before, but I followed your lead. It was what you did over your 2 years as president that allowed me to to model myself, because you went through a couple of turbulent years. 5 superintendents during that time, including 2 interims. I mean, no board should go through that, and certainly no board president should go through that. And 2 full-time superintendent searches, which, the last of which was done in a very speedy fashion.
I want
Great
to
results.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, but I learned a lot just from observing you in particular during that time. I mean, you were also a very calm president during that time, and there were things you did that really stuck with me. So I thank you, my sister, for what you did during that time, and for me being able to model after you. Nick, you know, it's always just, there's always the heart that you bring, and you know, when we're talking about the different students, especially students of color, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness that you bring to the discussion, and some of the encouragement you've certainly given me. Some of the times that, you know, when I've had to run over and grab you, you know, take you home, something like that. And we've had some nice chats along the way, so I certainly appreciate that. Carla, come on. You know, Chindo love right here, a little Chinese Indonesian love. You know, our family backgrounds are very similar, Chinese Indonesian heritage, so it's fun to be able to share that with you. You know, and certainly some great discussions we had. Went in San Diego a couple weeks ago during the CSBA conference, and certainly the lunches that we've had just to talk about how do we, you know, coaching you through some stuff, and just also bouncing ideas off you as well. And Kalima, I mean, especially this past year and a half, when I look at the equity ride we've been on, and that right there, I've said it before in these meetings, and I'll say it again. I mean, walking alongside you with that, to see things from your perspective, you know, just knowing the struggles you've gone through as a single mom, as a single African-American woman, raising your 3 kids, and you sharing your story in a room full of board members, and to be able to learn from you, and it takes me to a place where I have had to really think about my own biases, and I am so grateful for your friendship. You know, you're a sister too. You know, and then to be on 2x2s with you related to this faculty and staff housing, and all this other work that we're doing right now, including the equity work, which it's just a joy to be able to do that with you. You know, and I see, you know, the stuff that we're all doing together. Come on, folks, we're going to be building housing for teachers and staff in a few weeks. You know, it's coming. That was a pipe dream 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, and here we are. I mean, it's staring us right in front of us, and we're doing it. And we get to do it together, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, we opened up, you know, the Daly City Youth Health Center moved into a new space.
It's beautiful.
You know, and to be able to see that, again, the work on equity that we're doing, where we're really, you know, really thinking through exactly what it means to take care of the students who require the extra help, you know, and how do we change our mindsets to be able to do that work effectively for all of our students. Dr. D, you know, just grateful that you are here, the calmness that you bring to this, you know, the hard work you've done with your staff to help us as board members. I mean, I've grown as a board member because of things you've said and shared from your prior experiences, and it's helped me immensely, so thank you very much. And Candace, come on. We love you, Candace. Just, you know, you're right there. And to our student trustees, I know there's 2 of you, but you represent all the student trustees that we've had. You know, I'm always blown away by what our students say, share, the thoughtfulness you bring to our discussions, the pride that we certainly had in San Diego, seeing our students present, and the joy with which which all of you had, learning from other board members. And to the executive cabinet over here, every one of you, I know I've learned a lot in my time as president. So, and I know the kind of work each of you are doing to turn us into a district that's on the upswing, and we're going to be doing some great things, and I'm grateful to your leadership in each of your respective fields. So thank you all, and thank you to the staff who are here this evening. I'm humbled by your presence here, kind of always. It's just, it's cool. Thank you. So I guess that's explained. We'll adjourn for, no, what else? Oh, sorry.
Before I give you this wonderful gift,
Sure.
I just want to make a comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So this is the start of my 3rd year, and when I came here, it was under President Rosie, so thank you for that. But I think what I want to share with everyone in the room is that great work is never done by a single person. It takes a team, and it's not just the governing board, although let me tell you, you have no idea how good a board you are. I've been around the block a few times, a few of us have been around the block a few times, and we know what strong governance looks like, and you are very definitely a functional board that I find easy to work with. But it's the work that you do with my team, with the students, and with our community partners, and I think we are a district on the upswing, and I think that's because of our joint work together, and we bring a big part of that in these past 2 years, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so now, we got this wonderful, where do you want me to be, April, in front, or?
Or we can do the pictures afterward.
Yeah.
Let's do
Let's just show.
Lovely flag. Andrew Lee, President, Board of Trustees for the Jefferson Union High School District from 2017 to 2019, and very tiny print, served in distinction.
All right, so
Now you can adjourn.
6:29 we'll adjourn, and then we'll come back at 7 o'clock for the rest of the meeting.
Right, snap.
we will reconvene to regular session at 7:04 p.m. All right, item 7, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, Dr. Doria?
There are no changes.
If I want to pull something out of consent,
Okay.
I'd like to pull item 9D3 out of consent.
9D3?
Yes.
Okay.
So remove it and then re-agendize for a future meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
And
please.
suggest that.
Okay.
We'll do that.
And then also, is this a time to, I'd like to make the suggestion that we table item 12A2, the climate emergency declaration and resolutions. Since, most of we have 2 student trustees here, if you don't mind. We have 2 student trustees here, but this was a giant effort by a student advisory council, and most of them aren't here because they're studying for finals. I'd like to move it to the next, yes.
We will do that. All right, so is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. All right, communications board report. We'll start over here with our student trustees.
Oh, sorry. So at Oceana, we finally got our water bottle stations that we fundraised from Bog Fest last year. And we've already saved over like 500 plastic bottles with the one fountain upstairs, and I don't know about the gym yet. Last week or last 2 weeks at CSBA, me and a few other trustees presented our presentation of our advisory council to a group of other, mostly board members. It was kind of small, but people still got the message, so that was good. Today we delivered our wintergrams, which is one of ASB's biggest fundraisers because a lot of people buy them for their friends. And we finally had our harvest fair because we had to push it back so many times. And it's not really a harvest anymore, but yeah, a lot of people bought it.
So at Jefferson, the first week of December, the Jefferson High School Band hosted their annual winter concert. It was Esperanza, it was a show, a play with music. Everyone liked it. It was a huge success. Had a lot of fun doing it. Last week, the seniors of the AP Government class and the normal government class participated in an Action Civics project hosted by the AP Government teacher, Adam Huey. This project was hosted so students could create poster boards about any current topic they thought was an issue at school, or just in general, whether it be from gun violence to school funding and another myriad of topics. They took these poster boards, each class worked on one topic, worked in a group, and created one poster board to present at the Action Civics Day event. This event was in San Francisco by City Hall, and about 30 students came in, and each class had select representatives to present their board to judges and adults who can take notes and see what students think their problems, what they think is the problem at their schools. This event was really nice. We got to see a lot of other schools as well, see what they thought were issues in their school subject, and it was really nice. And finally, again, this week is finals week. A lot of us are studying.
Okay. So I also went to the California School Boards Association annual education conference, and was super proud to present with our Student Advisory Council. I basically did a 5-minute intro, and they just ran with it, and they had a presentation. They had worked on it. I mean, even at dinner, they had their laptops out, and they were making tweaks of the presentation. They were just so amazing, and I mean, it was like 25 to 30 mostly board members in the audience, and I had to actually ask them not to interrupt because they were raising their hands to ask questions during the presentation. And then they had tons of questions afterwards, and then we're going to the students afterwards with their cards and asking, do you think I could get that presentation? So it was so well received, and I think it's probably one of the biggest highlights I've ever had serving on this board since I started in 2014. It was amazing. Just a little, just if any of you are shopping at Ceremony Center, Westmore and Jefferson have gift wrapping tables, and it's a fundraiser. They wrap presents for tips, and they get to keep the donations, and it goes to their programs. So if you're at the mall, drop by and have them wrap your presents for you.
Yeah, the semester's ending fast, so it's been good to kind of focus on different issues closing out the year. Being at the CSBA conference was really good. You know, we were at different panels. It was really good to see our students present. That's something I think probably the highlight of the entire experience. And being able to network people across the state. Our district is doing a lot of great things, as we know, and we're getting the recognition for that, so that was really good. To see and hear that, to kind of voice that with other people working, not only in education, but in policy and finance, and seeing how we can build around housing and different issues, but also learning from other districts that are similar to ours, in that they are small districts outside of big cities who are doing things that may or may not be on the map, but definitely have a lot of potential. And so one of them actually was the Youth Cinema Project, which are one of our partner districts, Jefferson Elementary, has been doing with Edward James Olmos, nonprofit, and building around film and visual informing arts, and things that are empowering all around. I feel like the work they've been doing at MP Brown is something that we will be seeing here at the high school level, and that trajectory is really inspiring, because I feel like a lot of that work is part of the work we do in all our classes, but I think arts and culture are a big part of that. So that, there were more updates around state ballot initiatives and legislation pending, but there was a presentation on research around autism and special education. There's a film called Life Animated, so getting a chance to talk with one of the producer and directors and seeing how that's influencing work in special education, just awareness, is one of the things I hope to bring back to this district as well, as a teacher in the field. So yes, looking forward to the rest of it, and this year's moving so fast. It's almost like 2020. So.
So obviously I went to the CSBA conference too, and it was really nice to be able to spend a lot of time with Dr. Deloria, with other board members, student trustees, going to workshops, and I do want to commend again Rosie's, Kalima, and Dr. Deloria for prepping the students to do the presentation, which they did, by the way, an awesome job, and it was just really full of knowledge, and they were such experts sitting up there. So again, I want to say that they did a great job. Other than that, I'm still selling Jamba Juice cards and candy. So all the way to like March for the Betty Schultz Scholarship Fund for high school seniors. That we'll give scholarships at the end of the year. So if you still feel in your heart that you need some stocking stuffers, please come and see me. I'll be happy to share those goodies with you. But thank you, and I hope everyone has a great holiday season.
So I wasn't able to go to the conference. This is the first conference I've missed during my entire tenure as a school board member, but the paying job called, so I'm very happy that you guys were all there to help represent. I know that the room wasn't full for you guys when you did your presentation, but you don't know the size of the districts of the board members that were there. We have some really large districts, and even if you helped a district that had 100 students, those are 100 students that now have voice. So thank you so much for going to the conference and talking about the importance of student voice, and I hope that the message was heard and carried out throughout the state. So thank you so much for picking up that mantle. The other thing I would like to talk about is I was extremely disappointed that the CSBA, who has a continued track record of not listening to school board members, even though they're supposed to represent us, decided not to move forward with their ballot measure on the 2020 ballot, which to me is like the optimal time to look to pass a funding measure for schools. And there was a fear of having 2 competing ballot measures, but I think that we need to have more faith in the voters of the state. And also look at the gap in funding when it comes to getting us to where we need to be we're in the top 10 in the nation. So that report has come out and says the gap is around $33 million. So the one funding measure that's looking to qualify for the ballot will only bring in, 33 billion, excuse me. And the ballot measure that's qualifying, which is the Prop 13 family and community schools, that will bring in $4 billion. So that is nowhere near the $33 billion we need just to be where we should be. So the $11 billion that the CSBA measure was going to bring in, I like to do math, and $15 billion is way better than 4. So we're going to have our budget and our first interim budget discussion tonight. And we're talking about a lot of programs and building up a lot of programs, but I always take that in the caveat that we are constantly being asked to do more and more with less and less when you talk about the cost of inflation, the rising cost of healthcare, and the other ongoing expenses that go onto the school district. And so again, I make a plea for people to reach out to their family and friends about the importance of voting. And the lack of faith in voting is what caused them to not want to run competing ballot measures. And I hope you will join me in trying to get more parents on the initiative to get parents to pledge and community members and supporters of education to pledge to vote so that we can show that there's an appetite to do these type of funding measures and get California to where we need so that we can pay our teachers and staff the salaries that they deserve, that we can continue to have programs, not be afraid that we're going to build up and tear down. So I'm excited to move forward with the work this year, getting more parents engaged in democracy and hoping that in the future we can get our funding back to where it needs to be. That's all I got.
I too was at the conference in San Diego, and it was, I thought, again, it was just amazing to see our students completely engaged with the conference and actually seeing their excitement in networking and in talking to vendors on the trade show floor, vendors that fit sort of the stuff that they're really interested in working on. And so I asked one of them on the last day, what have you learned? What's your one takeaway? And she said, networking. And it was, and it was just exciting to just hear her then just elaborate on that. I unfortunately was unable to see our students present because I was actually presenting at a seminar of my own related to housing. I did get to see the students prepare the night before though, so it was actually really great to see the presentation itself and the hard work they put into it. So kudos to you guys. The reports have been outstanding. But it was definitely an honor to be able to speak to you about the project again. And really just interesting to see how many school districts are well aware of what we're doing now. The types of questions that came up afterward were less about the how did you do it as opposed to more along the lines of, this is what we want to do and what do you think if we did this? So it was really a different type of tone. And it was good to be able to present up there with both Landon and also Mountain View Wisman School District, which has got a completely different type of model than what we're doing. But it's heartening to see how many districts are well on their way in exploring staff and staff housing, and others that are definitely exploring it.
Good evening, everybody. So I have a couple of things. It is the end of semester 1. And people think of this as a quiet time of year, but it's actually a really busy time of year for students trying to wrap things up, and for teachers who are trying to get everything graded and in the grade books in time for them to enjoy their break. And when we come back, I just want to remind everybody what it's like when we come back. It's like the mad race to graduation. So I can't believe half the year is gone already. We are having our district office holiday celebration tomorrow at 1 o'clock. You're all welcome to attend. We moved it to 1 o'clock because in past years, when we had earlier, the adult programs here at Sarah Monte Del Rey weren't able to participate. So we chose a time that was far more inclusive. So hoping we have a good turnout for that. A couple of really exciting things that I did last week. Some members of my cabinet and I went over to Seton Hospital. The adult transition students were sponsoring a meet and greet. And for the community, we have a number of employers who partner with our district so that our students ages 18 to 22 can get work experience. And Seton's one of our great partners. And so they had a meet and greet where we could meet members of the Seton board and some of their employees. And the students were there, were selling goods and pushing way too many sweets to everybody, but it was just a really nice event. So that was great. Today, I was at a SELPA board meeting. I do sit on our SELPA board. And at each SELPA board meeting, there's some kind of a spotlight activity.
What is the SELPA board?
The SELPA is a special education local planning area. Did I get it?
Got it.
So it's the agency who coordinates with all of our special ed programs across the county of San Mateo. Good question. And at every board meeting, there's a topic, some kind of a spotlight on some highlight special ed, and today it was our district. So we had our program specialist, Lee, who was there. Christy, our director, was also there, but Lee was presenting kind of a pilot program that we're doing in this district, something that we hope will spread everywhere. And that's where the students lead their own IEP meetings, or their individualized education plan meetings. He was sharing the documents, and so you can kind of see the guided sheets that the students go through that align page number by page number with the actual IEP documentation. And it was just another example of how our district here represents student voice. And you would have been really proud to hear that presentation. I asked them to put that link in this week's recap so you can read that. All kinds of benefits that I think you'll agree will be a good thing. And this week we're going through federal program monitoring. This is where when we get money from our federal government, in theory, every 4 years they come through a school district. They pick a school, in this case it's Jefferson High School, and they go to make sure that all of the assurances, the things we agreed to do, we're actually doing them. And I don't know the outcome of that yet, but I do want to recognize Ms. Baca. She and her team have spent the better part of this year getting ready for that. It's not easy. It's more work on top of everything else. Went to CSBA, and can I just say the students were great. On the way to San Diego, we had a lot of airline debacles. The night before we went, our flights were canceled, and I was the chaperone for the students. So when Southwest rescheduled, they put me on one plane and put the students on another. And then started a series of delays and things like that. But they were great, even as we sat at the airport on the way there. They sat around doing homework, and I mean, they were an absolute pleasure to chaperone. If chaperoning was always that easy, sign me. But I would also remind the board and everyone in the room that even districts who have student trustees, the trustees don't have the voice that our student advisory does. So I want to thank the board for recognizing and putting together this program. It is our second year, and I think it's really successful. And it really, again, sets us aside from other districts in California. Thank you, and happy holidays, everybody.
And I don't think we have any, Ms. Casey is here this evening for the AFT report.
She is in Cuba dancing.
We shall move on to approve the consent agenda that was previously amended.
Move that we approve consent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. On to item 10, public comment. Do we have any blue cards this evening, Ms. Tejada?
We have 2 blue cards. Azra Ziadin. Oh, is this on a special agenda item?
Yes, I don't know what the agenda item is.
Okay. Okay, so we'll wait until we get to that item.
So no blue cards.
Then we have another blue card from Adam Cubey, and so he's here on both. No?
That's fine.
You'll just do it at the same
I'll wait
time?
for this.
Okay, all right. We'll wait till that item.
Good. So we'll move on to item 11A1, BPAR 6174, Education for English Learners.
Okay, so remember, we were working on the 5,000s, but due to federal program monitoring, Ms. Robinson did ask me to bring this forward to you for revision. So by you looking at this tonight and improving it in January, our policy and regulation is current with not only state mandates, but also with the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is a federal mandate. Most of it, there's nothing really controversial. I think the biggest change was moving it from monitoring our redesignated students every 2 years to every 4 years.
Okay.
And I didn't receive any questions on that.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. All right, then we will move on to item 11A2, LGBTQ+ proposals for consideration 2020-21 LCAP budget. Do we have the committee?
Yes, so I would like to invite our speakers forward. I know we have other members of the committee here. We could have Ms. Ambrose and David and Annette and Marcus and Mara. I'm going to start us off with a little background, but these are members of our committee, and I'll share more information in just a
So do we do the blue cards after?
I think we do the presentation,
And then the blue cards.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me okay without a microphone? Okay, great. So why is our committee here represented tonight? There were 2 tasks that our committee were asked to do. One was to identify barriers. Remember, at the beginning of the school year, we talked about how there are barriers that prevent some of our less resourced students from being as successful as they can be in school. And so I made an ask to everybody in our district to be in search of those barriers and bust through them. So our ad hoc committee was brought together for the purpose of identifying barriers for our LGBTQ+ students, and then to recommend remedies based on research. So a little background, I brought this committee together last year. There are 31 members. All of the schools are represented, the district office. There is participation from our county office of education and the Pride Center, and we've had 2 students who consistently have been attending. So what you're going to hear tonight are the committee, what they did is they took their list of barriers and they prioritized. They recognized we couldn't do everything right away, so they picked their top 3, and actually they snuck in a 4th one as well. Okay. And so what they're going to be making recommendations to you tonight are on these 4 areas. Areas of staff training, having an LGBTQ event similar to the screening of the S word last year, suicide. They're going to be discussing all gender bathrooms and kind of a plan to restock our classroom posters. So what I would like is that if you can hold the discussion to the end, but if you have any clarifying questions at each section, that would be a good place for clarification before we move on to the next one. And we'll have a discussion and following the blue cards. So at this time, I'm going to pass the clicker, and maybe you could just have everybody introduce themselves first. Is that okay? Mara, who are you, what's your role, and what school are you from?
I'm Mara. I'm the vice principal over at Westmore High School.
I'm Melissa Ambrose. I'm the district wellness coordinator.
I'm David Davenport. I teach French over at Jefferson.
I'm Annette Kesterson. I'm the librarian at Terra Nova.
Marcus Peppers, director of maintenance and operations and district office in Best Garage.
Okay, thank you. And if you're on the committee, can you just give a little wave here? Okay. I'm going to pass the clicker down. Start on this first.
So just go? Awesome. Just go. Okay. So I'm representing the training crew. It's nice to see all of you, by the way. What
what does one do with this item? And look, I'm looking at it through the little reading portion of my glasses too. Okay, so our little committee of the bigger committee got together, and what we were tasked with doing, or what we were really feeling passionate about, was training. So we feel like there's a lot of awareness in the Bay Area, and there's a lot of lack of awareness in the Bay Area. So we can't rest on our laurels. Because we think we're sort of like a queer, positive part of the country, and so we really believe that one of the most effective ways to help LGBTQ+ students feel supported is for the adults who are around them to hold the space, to hold the language, to hold safety, to understand inclusivity. So we focused on staff training. This is not for students, although the training will kind of merge into the area of teaching. So we just got a whole bunch of statistics. I don't need to spend a huge amount of time on this. I think you all know that LGBTQ+ students are still some of the students that are most at risk of bullying, dropping out of school, self-harm, depression, anxiety, attendance issues, and unfortunately, in some parts of the country, suicide. So there's a whole bunch of slides that are showing you. There's various surveys that are done. One of the surveys that some of these statistics came from is the California Healthy Kids Survey, which our district participates in. And, you know, we really want our youth to feel like they have people that they can talk to at school who are adults and feel comfortable and safe. And also, some of the research shows that many young people don't have that at home. So there's intergenerational cultural conflict, there's a lot going on at home, there might be religious issues, et cetera, and so they really need to feel at school that they can be themselves safely. So more statistics, and the unfortunate thing is that schools are still really unsafe, and that young people are still really hearing, like 65% of them saying that they're still hearing regularly homophobic slurs, and a bunch of them are missing school based on that. So we really gave you guys a lot of statistics. So another area that we really particularly focused, I think we've come a much further way with the expression of sexuality than we have with our understanding of gender. And gender is sort of the new frontier for many of us, even for me, who's part of the LGBTQ+ community. Understanding gender and the variations in gender, and how important that gender is as important as sexuality as far as being able to be out and be comfortable. So we really focused also on gender, and students who are gender nonconforming or transgender are at sort of in the lowest rung of success and feeling supported at school as far as the LGBTQ+ students go. So hopefully we're getting to training. This statistic is saying that the more LGBTQ inclusive the curriculum is, the more likely that they're gonna feel comfortable at school. Yay, so here we are. So what we did is we researched, there's a very well-known local organization called Gender Spectrum. We didn't even put that on our slide, sorry. And they at this point have so much draw on their organization that they cannot keep up with the level of training that they were doing previously. And so they have moved into this wild, new technological training because they really want their trainers who are training staff members to be very skillful and understand the milieu and the whole scene about what's going on with sexuality and gender for young people. And so they do a live stream training, and they propose that the way that they would do it is every school in the school district, everybody would be doing it simultaneous. So we would have these kinds of things. We probably have one person on a computer who and post notes around in each school. We talked about actually not having everybody like in the little theater because it's so easy to check out in those kinds of situations, that we would talk about dividing people up into smaller groups of maybe 30 or 25 and streaming it through classrooms. And then one person in that room would be on a computer because it's live, and people could be running post-it notes over to them to ask questions, and that person would be typing questions in, and then the trainer would actually answer the questions live. So obviously you all could come to that if you had time and space. And there's 2 90-minute sessions, and we were sort of conceptualizing that they would be done 1 month apart on our Wednesday collaboration days. It would be predetermined now. If you guys all say yes, this seems like a great idea, we would get it in the calendar this year, so there was no debate about it, and the whole district would do it simultaneously. And we're hoping for a session in August, a session in September. The first session is sort of like Sex and Gender 101. What's the difference between sex, sexuality, and gender? So we all know the terminology. And then the second session is like how you now practice as a gender inclusive, like someone who's gender and sexually inclusive staff member. So just things like not coming into the classroom and saying, ladies and gentlemen, please get quiet. Like immediately you're ruling out a segment of that room. So saying, hey folks, I don't think folks is gender, but it could be. You know, like, yo people, we gotta get quiet or whatever. They probably don't talk about it that way. So those sessions seem very, and they're very popular. School districts all over the Bay Area, actually all over the state are doing this with Gender Spectrum. And then our Fantasy Island part of the training crew is that they also have this really neat program called the Inclusive Schools Network, and it trains teams from schools. So it doesn't work if there's not a team. I just want to reiterate that. It's one person going is going to be money spent that's not spent well. So it needs to be a team from a school, and then that team goes to like a retreat at the beginning of the year. I don't know if that means like you spend the night kind of retreat. I don't think it does. And then you have month-long ongoing support. You're put with other schools. There's a whole lot of conversation. They give you a person at Gender Spectrum, and you're really using the team to institute whole school change. And what they believe and what their data shows is that when we make schools safer, gender expansive, gender inclusive, sexuality expansive, sexuality inclusive students, we're actually making it safe for everybody. The practices apply across the board for diversity of any kind. So here's our budget piece. The beautiful piece of the budget piece is the training for the entire district is only $850 plus whatever kind of, I don't know, anything we might need to add. I don't think we need to add anything technologically at any of the schools. And then if, you know, everybody's on the pay, almost everybody's on the clock during the time that we would do it. So we might, and we had talked about convocation day, so that third bullet actually is sort of a non-existing one. Some people end their day at once. We might have a small cost to pay people to stay until 3 or 3:30. The Inclusive Schools Network, the Fantasy Island part, is the really expensive part. It's $3,000 per person. We believe the smallest team should be 2. We would prefer it would be 3. If we did everybody at all the schools, it could get up to $54,000, but we don't have to do all the schools the first year. So one school would be $9,000. All the schools plus the district office, I think we did the math right, $54,000. So that is the training portion, I believe. Let's see. Yep, of the presentation. Any clarifying questions for right now? Nope. Excellent. Thanks.
Are you the VP, so you should.
No.
You
No.
You're not
Are you kidding? You were so well spoken. I just get excited about it, so that's why.
It's a fancy clicker.
All right, so for the community events, we were looking at different aspects of ways that we could give students programming to help them feel more, to feel safe, to feel included and appreciated, and potentially, and this will come up a little bit, have like interscholastic cooperation on some things. So, for example, there's a LGBTQ plus leadership summit. Did you know about that one? Did you talk about that one?
No, you go ahead.
Oh.
You did great. I'll talk to you a bit.
Right, so for example, at another district that I worked at, we had a get-together for the students each semester. And the first one ended up being, they had a speakers bureau of LGBTQ plus students that spoke, because we also had, the last district I was at was K-12. And we also had middle schools there so that they could see high schoolers and mix with other high schoolers so that they had made connections, so that when they transitioned into high school, they'd already kind of start off knowing somebody and feeling a little bit safer because they saw, you know, familiar faces. And also, it also gave them leadership training on different aspects of, you know, speaking up for themselves and advocating and anti-bullying things and stuff like that. We also discussed having an event for parents, caregivers, students to meet together and mingle and discuss issues around sexuality and gender and what it all means, and sometimes like such things as, which I think will come up probably with posters too. Again, terminology and stuff, because there's, even for me, you know, as a teacher who's been here, things like cisgendered and stuff like that are kind of new, right? So I think a lot of people out there have questions and concerns about that. So some of our purpose was that ideas and resources, to get ideas and resources that attendees could use immediately. We'd probably try to do it somewhere like here, where it's kind of a central location. It's not at a school, so it's kind of a little bit, I feel like sometimes if you go to a different place, it kind of feels like a little bit more safe, you know, because you know, it's a bit out of you're changing up the works. Right, it feels like an event instead of you're just at school again. Typically, I probably try to be after school for some things, especially get-togethers for students and stuff, which we know is a challenge for some of our students to be able to go to. But we hope that if we can plan these things and get them started, that students could plan ahead and be able to be there, right? We discussed, for example, at the big community event where parents and students and everybody we were hoping could get together and talk, would be kind of like an event, a festive sort of thing, a convivial atmosphere where perhaps we could get food trucks because, you know, like even if it's, we don't call them snow cones anymore. What do we call it? Not snow cones. What do we get? Snow cones were in the South, yeah. Shaved ice. Shaved ice, boba. Oh, the kids like tea pumps, that's it. A DJ, booths, things like that, you know, booths where information booths from different organizations around San Francisco and San Mateo where they have resources for students who are questioning things or who know what their identity is but are reaching out, you know, are looking for more support.
Well, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to piggyback on what you're saying. So, and one of the things we were talking about is that I think that when we're going to be bringing some new information, when we're going to be bringing new ideas, it would be great to get the energy around it and the excitement around it. I know that there's a lot of staff that would like that information, want it in a way that's non-threatening, want to be able to get the resources they need. And it's nice to go into an environment where there's balloons, there's food, there's fun, there's people talking, and there's resources you can pick up that you could use that day. Because you've all been to the conference where you've heard someone talk all day and you don't get anything out of it. And there's one thing when you go to a fun event, you walk away with some flyers, you're able to use it in the classroom the next day. That's a completely different thing. And having it friendly enough so that students can attend, families that might be interested and want some of that information, and just to launch it in a fun way. So it's not, hey, the district's come up with this thing for you to do. It's more of, hey, this is some great information that you can take away that's going to support you and your students right away, and we're going to make it fun and interesting for you to do. And there's nothing better to do than with a DJ. We have our own Stephanie here, who we've already tagged as a DJ. And so the local organizations you're talking about, we've got a few up there, but I think my group was so great about brainstorming. Some good stuff.
Well, I'd like to reiterate the idea of getting GSAs together semesterly, just to have a meet and greet, and so that they can share ideas and collaborate. And you know, if we could perhaps reach out at some point to the K-8 side of things, if they have GSAs, and invite those folks in so that we're building bridges and helping them transition into school as we talk about our mission is going to and through, right? To get them not only to and through college, but also to get them to and through high school, right? Which is a big thing. And an idea, just to echo what she was saying about training and things that you could take away right away, we're already working on a book discussion group. A really short book. It's like $9 on Amazon or $10, something like that, called Read This, Save Lives. And it's written from a student's perspective. It's only like about 100 pages. That has a lot of information that a teacher or a parent or even a student that's kind of struggling with these issues and maybe needs a little bit more education can read them. It's a really quick, easy read, and it gives a lot of good resources and information that you can again take and use like right away.
Yeah, so I mean, to sum up, we really want to make a fun environment with lots of resources, reach out to our community members and really build in all stakeholders in being able to access the information and to get excited about being able to reach out to a topic that I think for some people is hard to bridge and making that accessible for everybody. And the budget's pretty low.
And our budget is very small. You know, it wouldn't cost a lot. I mean, we could have school services and stuff do some things, but also have, like we said, food trucks and things, but, you know, decorations and materials and stuff. A lot of that from the organizations would be, you know, free.
Yeah.
You know, one hopes. So, yes.
Great. So student, community, parent voice, and getting excited about our topics. Thanks.
So our smaller group was working on facilities and more specifically all gender bathrooms because it was a common area that came up. So we wanted to get something in the facilities. We want to continue to work on facilities and making them more inclusive for everyone. And we wanted to get something that we could act quick because sometimes it is harder to work on the facilities with money and building a budget and having to work with the kids around. So we thought something we could do right away is that we would at least work with the site admin and the principals to provide at least one all-gender bathroom for staff and one all-gender bathroom for students at each site. And so we would work with the principals on picking the best locations, making sure they're centrally located, making sure everyone has access to them, and also working with the communication to the students and to the staff. And so then once we're able to identify where these are, we can see what kind of cost is going to have to go into each one. But if we're starting with just the one for each, the cost is small and minimal where we can make it happen immediately while we're able to go back to our group and continue to work on more long-term goals where we're able to make all the bathrooms or all the locker rooms and all the facilities more inclusive for everyone. And so our budget right now for the one bathrooms will be minimal. It will be just making those so all the students can use them and staffs can use them. The budget moving forward is what we need to continue to work on, but we just wanted to have something that's tangible that we can have immediately while we're able to dig deeper and see the overall needs of all the facilities.
All right. So for posters, we wanted to kind of cover three basic areas or ideas to make the students feel included in the community, to educate the community on terms, and to just foster interaction. So I basically looked at a lot of materials that we could get for free and produce in-house, and I have a variety of examples, and we're gonna go to the different sites, and the GSAs can vote on which resources they find personally most appealing. I don't know if there are more pictures. Okay, so there are a couple of the options that we have. My favorite organization to use is Teaching Tolerance, and I get a lot of materials from them, and they are all about inclusivity on all topics, race, disability, all that kind of thing. And so we have a variety of actions, and then the kids can choose which ones they find most appealing, the different school sites. My other focus was on having faculty and staff members fill out some general information and post in their classroom regarding pronoun usage and having informative pronoun, safe space for all, pronouns 101, so that a lot of us aren't familiar or comfortable knowing necessarily how to approach like what pronoun people use for themselves. So it would have not just like he, she, their, whatever. It would also talk about you as a faculty member and the things that you do. So it's opening a lot of conversation, not making it a weird ghettoized he, she thing, you know, you're showing to students that you're an advocate. There are different things that you can choose. You can have whatever picture you want. You can choose to have, I'm an ally. You can choose to have, I'm a member. You could say what your input is in it. So just to give more information to share. So again, our budget would basically just to be to cover, this is our all highs, to cover the materials, so the laminating films, and you know, we already have the printers with the paper, things like that. So it'll be minimal, but we could make a big impact and just make it really visible on campus and seamlessly a part of the school that we're there for them. So, and I have examples if anybody wants to look at them.
Do you want to pass those around?
It's Maria, pass it around.
You can guess. I mean, there are any number of quotes from, you know, community members, inspirational things, plus informative.
If I could say something too. Well, I was going to say, like, I have a poster in my room that I got from, I think, the health department in Colorado or something, but I've used it several times in class when I've heard slurs and things like that about different things, because it talks about how every student is welcome in the classroom, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of body size, religion, sexual orientation, all that stuff. And so it's like, we don't pick on people for these things. And I think it's a really powerful thing to have that right there, and you can say, what are we talking about? Right, you know, so.
And I like the quotes because they're colorful and positive, and it's not just don't do this, it's you can do these things as well. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will take us home. So, Lord, this is, I kind of summarized all of the proposals. You can see the low cost estimate in the left column and the Fantasy Island or long-term estimate. So we could do a lot with about 19,000. We could even more with 71,000. So something for you to consider when we meet for our study session on LCAP and the budget. And at this point, unless you have clarifying questions, I think you have some blue cards.
I have some blue cards. So I've got Ms. C.
Where do I go? So yeah, thank you guys.
Oh, hey, well, thanks for having us.
Do I have a time limit, or can I just?
It's, you're usually limited to 3 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so good evening. My name is Asra Ziaudin, or the kids call me Z. I'm a World History, AP World History teacher at Jefferson High School. First, I would love to echo that I, as a classroom teacher currently, would love all the supports that the group before was talking about, especially knowing that this year I definitely had to address several slurs in my classroom. I think what they were discussing is very important, very critical, actually necessary. At Jefferson, at least, I'm also on the equity committee. And then we have started discussing inclusive language with undocumented students, but I think this is a huge discussion we have not brought to the staff yet, and we're hoping to. So actually this is really in line with a lot of even site-based stuff. So that's my opinion. This one is actually a letter that a staff member from the English department, Mr. Hayden Morrison, submitted. He could not make it today, but I was just going to read his letter, and his letter I felt was very eloquent and also something I also echo with. To whom it may concern, my name is Hayden Morrison, an English teacher at Jefferson High School. It is my understanding that tonight you are to address the concern of LGBTQI funding at our school, particularly in regards to training, gender-neutral restrooms, and posters for each school site. In my years as a teacher, I've had a few students come up to me and come out as gay, trans, etc. It is not something that happens every year, but it's something that comes with much hesitation and fear, something that takes a lot of courage for a student to do. And inevitably, when I shower them with praise at their courage and tell them that they can always talk to me, they exhale a sigh of relief. Why? The reason is that they have no idea how their teachers will handle such a confession. These strong figures in their everyday lives, the ones that are supposed to be their pillars of support, are not guaranteed to be so in what is, for these students, the time of greatest need. These students, surviving 4 years with peers that may not always be sympathetic towards their plight, need to understand that at least the school supports them. To that end, posters and gender-neutral restrooms are a must. As a school, we need to demonstrate that we take their concerns seriously, to show them that we believe It is perfectly fine to be who they are. Furthermore, we need staff training to ensure that we know how to best show our support for our student population. After all, there is little point in goodwill without proper direction. While some students have a system of support in place in their personal lives, not all of them do. Help us ensure that if no one else, our school can be that system of support to let them know that we care. Supply us with this funding and we can put actions to promises that otherwise ring hollow. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my words. Best, Hayden Morrison. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam Cubey. I teach 12th grade civics and economics at Jefferson High School. Part of what I teach is actionable civics, and it includes youth voice. It also includes youth activism. And a big distinction when I teach it is the difference between awareness and actionable, sustainable actionable items. And Ms. Stewart and some students organized a coming out day and a couple other events at our school. And some teachers had Socratic seminars or discussions in class. And I noticed that during the Socratic seminars that I had, that I saw some students that were uneasy in talking about the topic, and also uneasy about even talking about what can be done within their community to address the topic, address the concerns of other students that might belong to this community. And one of the questions I brought back to myself, and maybe just thinking, is how do I support students and the community, and help students support themselves and the community, and take actionable steps with this issue. And I think the proposals that have been presented to here today are actionable items, and I believe that if the students put forth those, the communities put forth those, the staff has put forth those items, that I would hope that the school board supports these proposals, and which are actionable steps that the district can do to make sure to support this minority community.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
All right. Any comments, questions for the committee?
So I just want to say thank you guys all for your work. This is long overdue. So I'm glad that we're finally addressing this issue. I will say just right off the bat that one bathroom is not enough for me. So I think we should look into two or more right away, because I don't want to put the burden on the student of having a class in one part. Some of our campuses are huge, and you have a class in one part of the campus, and then they have to travel a long way to go to the bathroom, and that's ridiculous. The other thing I would like to say is that and we could talk about this, but we really look at the maintenance of those, because when certain bathrooms go down, they tend to just get closed. So I don't want us to put certain bathrooms in place and then there's a maintenance issue and they're closed and they still don't have access to a bathroom. So I think we should also look at not just having these bathrooms, but having special consideration in place about the maintenance and care of these bathrooms to ensure that all of them are always open. Because that's what equity, that's really addressing equity. And then everything else, absolutely. To me, this is just scratching the surface. So I'm glad that we're doing this. I would like to also see this committee look at some really hard policy, because flyers and posters are nice, but when it comes to how students are treated on campus, having policy that dictates how they're treated, to me, is something that we can enforce, and treatment needs to be enforced. And we need to make sure that this is something that always happens, that if this committee dies off, that the action doesn't stop, that it's something that's ingrained into our district culture, and the way we operate is dictated by our policies and procedures. So I would like to have some policies and procedures in place that demonstrate how students should be treated or spoken to if they are non-gender conforming, if, that it's not just an option to use those terms. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your work.
And I just want to say, when I saw that, I feel like, why is it taking so long? I feel like our schools, the students they've been gathering, and when I was going through Jefferson, I knew a lot of kids who weren't out because it wasn't safe. But my daughter, she has friends who haven't come out to their families, but they have their friends at school, and that's where they feel like themselves, and it makes me really sad. So I'm glad that you have stepped up so quickly to, 31 members, who've been meeting. I don't want this to die off, and I don't think it will, because we've got a really supportive district. And I want to thank you for all the work that you've done to move this forward and putting together such a great presentation and giving us numbers, because, numbers, we need them, right? So, but definitely, when Marcus, when you're talking about, getting at least one bathroom, I'm with Ms. Salavadine, we need at least two. But also, I like that, part of that is that we communicate to the students and the staff about them, because without, as you know, we sometimes struggle with communication, and that's super important in this case. And implementing all of this, it's going to be bumpy probably, as with anything, but it's so worth it, and it's about time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all the work and the presentation. I do think too, things like this are long overdue, right? Although I do think that recognition should be paid towards those who have been doing this work without, say, in a committee and this kind of initiative. I'm glad that our district is finally doing this, and so in terms of honoring actionable items and the progress in that, it's more than just talk, right? It's walking it, it's actually implementing things. And so resolutions, we've seen this at city and county levels, at state levels. We've seen a lot of progress in equality, and not just in equality, but equity, right? And so we talk about race, class, gender, sexual preference, status. A lot of our students suffer disproportionality and discrimination in various ways. And so this is one of those ways I feel like in San Mateo County, as Daly City as well, growing up here, has been invisible in many ways. The first time I saw a rainbow flag actually in public, in prominent area, is at BART this year with the Pride Parade. And so I was happy to see that, but it also reminded me of the same issues we're looking at now is we need to address this more, not just more quickly, but continuously. So yeah, I don't think that it's something that, would or should die off. And I do think that the progress, to honor the progress of those who have been putting in this work and investing in our community. I know teachers of mine are definitely an inspiration in the kind of things that I needed to know and learn growing up, and in my community as well. And I feel like our community, their voices are empowered when our institutions back them up. And so I'm glad that our high school district is looking at this and implementing these things, and I think facilities is one physical part of that. I do think that organizing is a part of that as well. And so when we're talking about issues of race and gender and sexuality, these are basic fundamentals, I think, of we think about civil rights and civic engagement. So I want to honor this discussion, and that's not, it didn't just start today, but it does take a big step in these developments, and looking forward to definitely building on that. Not just here in our district, but with the rest of the city and county. So I would like to see more of that. I know that San Francisco, of course, has been the trailblazer in a lot of these things, not just here locally, but globally. So we should be tapping into a lot of those resources and thinking about the things that that we're doing around even homelessness and houselessness with our students, with RAP services. A lot of those issues are real everywhere. I know at the college level, we have a lot of students who want to get involved as well and help develop these things and create that inclusivity. So last thing too, K through 8, very important. I was working at policy recently. There are GSAs, and there is work being done around restorative justice in these issues. So those would be really good places to start, especially with our youth who are feeling isolated at younger ages. So thank you.
I also want to thank you for the presentation and the work that you're doing to really be mindful of the inclusivity of all the students. As a step-parent of someone who has just come out recently as one of my family members and who is also a young person, I know that it was really hard for them to even make it known that they have come out, and I think that if they had gotten the support that they would have needed when they were younger and been able to talk to somebody about it, they probably wouldn't have as much inner struggle and being more comfortable with themselves as they do now. And I know that the journey is still in the beginning for them, but I definitely thank you again for really trying to create that safe space and that environment for those students so that they can freely be themselves and become who they can really be and not have to wait so long to delay the person that they want to be. So anyway, it's kind of hard to say, but thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
I'm blown away by the work you guys have done, actually, with the plan that you've put in place. And as far as I'm concerned, I lean towards the high end personally. I see 72,000. Come on, we spend $72,000 on much more trivial things in life, So to see what this investment can do for the group of students that desperately need this, and especially for the cultural change that's involved with this. The opportunity costs are our students' lives, and that's too high of a price. $72,000, frankly, is a drop in the bucket for the work that needs to be done. But I love the fact that the plan includes how we will approach cultural change in our school district. I mean, this is the equity work we've been talking about. We've been talking about racial equity, but we do need to talk about gender equity. And I'm so grateful that the 31 of you on this committee have done a remarkable job to come up with an actionable plan to do this. So I'm with you guys on the bathrooms. More is better, but I would say we got to send 5 schools to this all-inclusive schools training because every single school has got to do it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, my voice on this, when we get to that discussion, we better find $72,000 to put this in, or whatever it takes. So, thank you for the incredible work you've done.
Well done. I'm so proud of the work of this committee. Very proud. They did this work. I just kind of sat back and brought food, I think. Well done. And they shouldn't, I know many of you are either getting ready for exams, I saw Oliver here earlier, or have things to grade, whatever, so don't feel like you have to stay for the rest of the year.
We can take a momentary pause if you guys feel like you need to head out and do other stuff. So thank you so much once again.
Same thing with our trustees too, right?
Yeah, student trustees, if you guys feel like going to hang, that's cool, but if you guys have that exams tomorrow.
Don is always a trooper. When there's an exam, he's like, I'm staying.
Yes, please take some food.
Everything that you said. By the way. I forgot to say that on tape.
All right. Let's bring this back. I think this is my final one. This is good. My final agenda item.
Woohoo!
Won't have you to kick around.
Making Canada children.
Item 12A 1.1, elect board presidents. So, open this up to nominations.
I nominate Halima Salahuddin.
Second.
I second.
Just a voice vote?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right, close that. So we'll, so all those in favor of the election of Halima Salahuddin as board president?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take over and open up election for board vice president. Are there any nominations?
Nominate Rosie Tejada.
Second.
Okay, there's a nomination for Rosie. Are there any other nominations? No? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, congratulations. Thank you. Position of board clerk. Opening up the floor for nominations for board clerk.
Nominate Carlin Garrett.
Second?
Okay, that's a nomination for Carla. Any other nominations? Awesome. Okay, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Congratulations, Carla. And then appointing a board secretary. That is normally our superintendent. Shouldn't have a choice, so we call for nominations. So I think we just vote to appoint. All those in favor of appointing Dr. Deloria as our board secretary?
Aye.
Congratulations. And so before we move on, I just want to say again, I know we thanked Andy for all his service over the year, but just again to reiterate, I know how hard you worked because I was there a lot of the time. So thank you again, and I know that I have big shoes to fill, and I'm really am looking forward to putting my heart and soul into being the board president. This is only the second time that I've been board president in 8 years because of the unique nature of how we do our board presidency, which I think more districts should adopt because I really feel like it kind of builds stronger teams, and that the team has a really it's a good time to get to know each other and gel, because we only really see each other here or spend an extended amount of time here, and it's usually under a lot of pressure. So I really like that we all get to really know each other really well in those teams, and I'm looking forward to working with you, Rosie, and we've been a team for a while though, but really building that relationship so that we can focus on doing the work that we need to do for the district. Because we have come a long way, but there's still there's still a long way to go in terms of getting to the district that I feel that we are and that we should be. And so I think just to continue on our work with equity, and looking at the work that we've been doing with equity moving forward, and and tonight's presentation was a really good example of that. And that it be more than just our fellow trustee was saying, more than just resolutions, but that is actual actionable items that make our students want to be here and feel safe. Because as I said before, when we're looking to bring diversity into our teaching environment, into our teachers and staff, if you didn't have a good experience when you were a student here, then why would you want to come back and work here? So I think the first step in making sure that we build a more diverse student-teacher population is ensuring that all our students have a good experience while they have their feet on our campuses. So I'm really excited about that. And then the second thing is to continue the work to make sure that our district is working and functional. So I'm looking forward to the first interim budget presentation, the work that we're doing on workforce housing, and the work that we're doing to continue to find revenue for our district so that we can continue to be functional. So I thank you for entrusting me with this responsibility, and I'm looking forward to working with this team, both the board and our executive cabinet and our teachers and staff moving forward. So thank you.
You will do a phenomenal job. So I'm really grateful for being able to work alongside you.
It's a little early, let's just wait until. Anything else, any other comments? Do we have cards?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I was just basking in your glow. Get used to it. See, someone named Clayton Koo.
Good evening. I just want to extend my congratulations to President Salahuddin on being selected as president of your board, as well as Vice President Rosie Tejada. Look forward to working with you guys as well as the rest of the board for the year to come. I also want to extend my congratulations to President Andy Lee for his service the work that you guys are doing on workforce housing, as well as improving equity and education across northern San Mateo County is totally commendable. And I just want to extend my appreciation for all the work that you guys have done and look forward to working with you guys in the coming years to come. So thank you.
Don't forget gold.
Oh yes, bowling as well.
Hector Camacho.
I feel like I'm testifying. I did want to take a moment to congratulate Andy on 2 years of presidency, so thank you for your leadership there on behalf of the County Office of Education. I'm sorry we couldn't be with you earlier for the celebration. News of our pending lawsuit against Jewel just broke today, so we're busy managing that. So thank you for your leadership in that as well. Also wanted to be here to congratulate President Salahuddin. I love the title, President Salahuddin. We'll keep on holding on to that one for a while as we continue our work, particularly through the San Mateo County School Boards Association, leading with equity and justice as our guiding principles. So thank you for your leadership there, and congratulations, Rosie, as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, Parks.
And I also want to acknowledge some people in the audience that came out, and so we have city council members from the city of Pacifica. So thank you, Sue, for coming. And then we have city council members from Belmont who are really friends of mine. So thank you so much for coming out. And I don't know if we could just take a brief break really quickly, just so I can say goodbye. Okay, so I'm going to ask if it's okay when you take a brief break for the whole board. Really quickly, so we're just. I know. Well, I'm trying to be, I don't want to, So we'll break really quickly for 5 minutes, and then we'll re-adjourn. Thank you. Are those, is that, what do you say? So the next item on the agenda is the appointment of the authorized agents.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I assume that those are all one person?
I'm sorry. I think so.
You didn't? Oh.
It must be Dr. Deluria. So we moved it all from last year's org meeting to this one? Do we not need, if we don't need to do them, fine.
This is not, it's not something that I have done in the past.
Okay, so we're good? So we can always bring it back if we need to, but it seems like this is okay, so I'm just gonna move on.
You don't have to do any of this.
We are moving the declaration, the climate declaration, to another day when the student trustees aren't taking finals. So that moves us on to item 12B1, our first interim budget report.
Thank you, President Salahuddin.
That's awesome.
Bask in the glow. Say it fast and loud.
So, good evening, everyone. Tonight we get to go over the first interim report. Every year at this time in January, we look at the fiscal health of the district from July 1st through October 31st. And the board is required to certify this report in one of three ways: either positive certification, which indicates that we will be able to meet our financial obligations for this fiscal year and 2 subsequent years, or qualified or negative. And I am recommending that the board certify us as positive. As you will see in the rest of my summary here, we will be able to meet our financial obligations. The first interim report does have a big change in it from the budgeted, the amount that was budgeted for this year. The property tax increase, I budgeted as about a 6% increase, which was considered conservative by the people I talked to at the County Office of Education. And our preliminary projection from the County Assessor's Office is 1.6%. That's still an increase over last year's tax revenue, but not as high as we had predicted. So as you can see, the tax history from 2014 to 2015, it increased 10.6%, and then the following year only 1.4%, and then 6.4, 6.9, and last year we saw an 11.5% increase. When we closed, or when we ended the fiscal year, it was at a 10.1% increase. So we don't even get the final information until well after the fiscal year is over. So this is what being a basic aid district is having us have to shift our thinking into really being in the unknown for most of the fiscal year. So we were anticipating revised projections to come out December 9th, and I haven't seen them yet. So I don't know when this number will be revised again, but it will be before second interim. And then we won't get the final number until August after the fiscal year is over. So I talked with the County Office of Education Deputy Superintendent of Business, Denise Porterfield, and she did not have any good advice for us. She said, you know, look at a little bit longer historical period. Maybe these large growth years are always followed by short growth years. I don't, if that could be. It's not a county-wide trend. The way that taxes are paid out to the districts is not as is an exact science as you would hope. The revenue limit districts were called to the county office today because they're getting revisions in their 17-18 and 18-19 revenue. It won't actually impact them in the long run because the state will fill that in with LCFF money. But in the short term, they're all going to be negative cash flow for the rest of this fiscal year. And so it's just, this is something that I'm learning more about and will do my best. In some of the other, what Ms. Porterfield did share with me is that some of the other basic aid districts do have a special reserve that they set aside each year where in years where they get more money than they expect, they put into that reserve so that it's there when they get shortfalls. And so that could be something that we want to consider in the future, and I'll start trying to see what that would actually mean for us. So I do anticipate this will move up some, but maybe not much. And then we are still, with the multi-year projections, looking at projecting a 4% increase. Because we have to put a button somewhere, we have to make a projection. So with these new projections, we do see that we are still going to remain basic aid, but not as far ahead of the LCFF formula as was projected at the beginning of this fiscal year, which is good news in a way. It's bad news that we're getting less money, but it's good news that our safety net is closer to us. So we won't ever drop below that blue bar. That's what where our guarantee is. And so we do have that certainty of the LCFF formula. So we've gone over before, you know, the risks of being a basic aid district is that you do see these big variations year over year, and also the delayed information as it comes in late. Enrollment is no longer really part of the equation, but it still plays a role in our expenditures, of course, but it doesn't dictate our revenue. And as we've been talking about for years, STIRS and PERS and the cost of special education, as well as our maintenance costs, are all increasing faster than the LCFF formula increases are, and faster than a 1.6% increase in tax revenues. So we have to be grateful that we were prudent last year and we took the excess revenue and put it in the reserves, and that's why we're not going to end up having problems meeting our projections for this year or the next 2 years. But we will have to continue to be not overspent. So for the multi-year projection, we see that these are the assumptions that I made in making these projections, that we would have continued contributions to the food service program. So that is because we have decided to continue with a district director. So the company provides us with a food service director, and in some districts that allows them to not have a district director, and the job of managing the staff at each site falls on the principals and the vice principals at that school site. And then the job of managing all of the free and reduced lunch applications and the state reporting and the things that we have to do would fall on the business office. And right now the business office supports the director, but the director does the bulk of the work. The director does the bulk of the HR work, the hiring and the training. And so I think for the good of our program, it's important to maintain that director position, but it can be revisited when we get to a place where our food service program is running very smoothly. So we can talk about it again when we do the budget development for next year, but I do have it in all 3 years of this projection to maintain that district director. And then the payment of the COP for the Daly Cities Health Center is done. We made the last payment in August, and so it is still in the 1920 fiscal year, but it will not be in the future fiscal years. And we do see with this new revenue projection deficit spending. So you'll see in this multi-year projection that this year it's almost $2 million, and this is true deficit. It's not one-time money or anything. This is a functional deficit, and it remains with us through next school year. But then the year after that, we come back to a balanced budget. If we don't increase our spending by more than what is required for STIRS and PERS, et cetera. So it just, we have a adequate reserve. It's not as healthy as we thought we would have at this point, and it is not going to protect us from another year of a 1% increase. Although if we have more years of 1% increase, the LCFF formula will be our stopgap. I think that that's about everything. The next interim report will be in early March, and that will go through January. There was no surprises in the revenue, other than the big surprise on the tax increases. And then for the expenditures, again, not big surprises. We weren't able to fill some of our vacancies, and so we have lower than projected salary and benefits costs, but those costs are taken up by contracted employees that so it's pretty equal to what we projected in total. Any questions, comments?
Isn't the Daly City Youth Health Center supposed to reimburse us? Or are we?
So, right. So they were intending on raising money to subsidize or to pay the district back for the construction costs. And they did raise money for some of the construction costs, but not all of it. We talked about the potential of them maybe making payments over time, or us decreasing our contribution to them over time. This year, their fundraising is still coming in below what they expected, and so I don't think that will be reasonable to expect this year.
Okay.
We can, I think that in the spring it might be good to have the Daly City Health Center come and do a report on their fundraising and their programs and things like that, now that they have a director who's been there for a while, at least a few months. And then the same thing for food service. I am planning on having people from Chartwell's as well as our district director come. We're thinking about April 14th for that presentation.
Questions or comments? So the only thing I have is that, holding reserve when we may not be able to move forward with other things becomes challenging. And so can we break reserve? Like, I hate when it's put as percentage because it's hard for folks to understand. So when we talk about this, can we also talk about how many months of operating that is?
Sure.
Because if we're getting closer and closer to being LCFF funded, and if nothing happens with, if any ballot measures don't pass, they make it to the ballot, and if they pass, there's a lot of ifs and ifs. When the economy goes, and if we're LCFF funded and they start deferring payments and stuff, then we would have to depend on our reserve for operating budget, which is a real possibility in the state. So I think we need to be able to communicate that effectively. And then the other thing is that this could be a topic of discussion when Chartwell's gets here, but if the food continues to be something that the kids want to eat, then how much can we pay for the director with revenue increase?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because we haven't raised the price of lunch in a while. And so how much do we need to raise the price of lunch to cover the director's so those are the two things that...
Yeah, I would say, I have been doing a lot of analysis of the food service financial. We aren't to the break-even point yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're still opening more lines at each school. Jefferson, we have all the lines open and the kids want more food. So we're talking about getting carts that maybe we can get out into the other spaces.
Yeah.
But I think with 1,300 students, it's not realistic to feed all of them in one lunch period. So we might want to consider going to 2 lunch periods someday, some, consideration.
Okay.
But even, so once we get all the lines open at all the schools, I think we will see definitely a break-even program and start to generate some revenue.
That's all I had. Thank you so much. All right, so moving on in the agenda. Sorry. Any future agenda items from anyone? Nope. So the only thing is I would add if we could schedule a mid-year review time.
Yes.
Yeah. That would be good. All right. And then we're not there's no one to adjourn, or adjournment is empty, so we don't need to adjourn for anyone. That's nice. I like that on my first meeting. All right, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you so much. Yay. All right. Oh, we are adjourned at 8:40 on my, because, okay, good, because sometimes I never know